Hello everyone, and welcome to today's masterclass, Think You Know Carbon, a quiz that could change how you work and build. Thank you for joining us today. So the construction sector is responsible for nearly 40% of global carbon emissions, and yet carbon remains one of the least understood challenges in our day-to-day work. So this interactive session is your opportunity to challenge your assumptions, test your knowledge, and reflect on the critical role you play in shaping a low-carbon future for the built environment. Today's masterclass is brought to you by ZIGURAT, Institute of Technology, in collaboration with Zero Construct, a global, not-for-profit community committed to accelerating decarbonization in the construction industry. So I'm Thaisa Figueiroa, architect and urbanist, program owner in institutional relations here at ZIGURAT, and it's my pleasure to be with you here today. And if you are new to ZIGURAT, let me briefly introduce us. We are an online education institution with over 20 years of experience in e-learning. We offer master's and postgraduate programs in architecture, engineering, and tech management, helping professionals around the world advance in their careers. And we are incredibly proud of our diverse and dynamic community with more than 20,000 students from over 120 countries. But before we dive into today's session, let's try to make it a little bit interactive. So we would love to hear from you. So please, if you can talk with us in the chat, where are you joining us from today? Let's try to make this a dynamic and engaging session and experience for all. And today's masterclass is closely connected to our postgraduate program in sustainable architecture and construction, designed to prepare professionals to lead the transition toward more responsible and forward-thinking practice in the built environment. This program offers a comprehensive introduction to sustainable architecture, advanced analytical tools and techniques, specialized knowledge across diverse sustainability areas, and strong emphasis on practical applications, including a final capstone project that applies what you've learned to real-world challenges. So if you would like to learn more about the program or speak with someone from our team, simply scan the QR code on the screen, and we will be more than happy to share more details and help you to take the next step in your professional journey. And now it's our great pleasure to welcome our speakers from today, Matthew Jackson, co-founder of Zero Construct and also global strategy lead at RIB Software, and Johnathan Munkley. He is co-founder of Zero Construct and director head of digital services in WSP. A little message for our audience: feel free to drop your questions in the chat during the session. We will make time at the end to address them in our Q&A. And that's it from my side. Matthew, Johnathan, thank you so much, and the stage is all yours now.
Hello. Beautiful. Hello, thank you very much. Great introduction. Hello, everybody, and welcome to what hopefully should be an interesting, good half an hour. Johnathan, how are you today? How's Manchester?
Very sunny, hence I have a tan, which is very strange for someone who lives in Manchester. And also fantastic attempt at pronunciation of my name, by the way. That was spot on. That was as Matthew was chuckling, but you got it right, which is rare. But anyway, well, how are you, Matthew?
I'm good. It's also sunny here in Sweden. So I'm based in Sweden. Jonathan's based in the UK, and we're here very much to talk to you about Zero. So let's get stuck straight in.
Let's get stuck in, not stuck. We're not getting stuck.
Let's get stuck in. So we We want to talk about carbon, and we want to kind of test the world and test you on whether you actually think you know about carbon or not. So there is going to be a quiz on and off part the way through, and stick in because there are prizes to be won for this quiz. So please do make sure that you stay. A huge thank you to ZIGURAT, of course, for introducing us. So we don't really need to go through this slide. And again, very much thank you for everyone attending and for being part of today. So what is Zero? I think Zero is a community that we started a few years ago. And Johnathan, you described it really well in our preamble, right? You were discussing Zero as a community for...
Yeah, so I think so. So historically, Zero started as a WhatsApp group of about 4 people talking about construction decarbonisation back in the pandemic. What it's grown into is community. I think there's a slide in a sec that gives you the stats, but about 3,000 people, lots of different countries from all over the construction industry. But it's basically turned into a community that looks at construction decarbonisation, waste reduction, error reduction, but for non-sustainability professionals. So it's just the general industry practitioner. I'm an architect. I think Matthew's an architect as well.
I am.
But engineers, building service consultants, everyone generally who sits in the built environment, not necessarily. We do have a lot of carbon experts. Our split is about 80% non-sustainability professionals and 20% sustainability professionals. So, but it's open, it's honest, it's there's no ask for anyone joining. It's just get involved and try and learn something. I think that's what it's about.
Fantastic. So what we're trying to do as a group of volunteers and communities is we're basically trying to solve this kind of question in a way which is kind of very open. You don't have to be, as Johnathan said, you don't have to be a sustainability expert. You don't have to be an expert really of anything. You can be a graduate or in university, or you can be near retirement. It doesn't really matter. And it doesn't matter whether you're an architect, if you're on site, it doesn't matter what part of industry you work in. We are all talking about this question. And the question is, how do we reduce the embodied emissions of new construction, which is currently at 12%? That is the question. And it's a very big question.
The question we get back is why you're not looking at operational carbon. That's always the question we get back.
Yeah.
Now, there's various reasons for that. One, you have a very significant impact in the first year of a project by reducing the embodied carbon. Very significant. I don't think we've got that slide in this deck today, but it's a lot if you can reduce it during the build phase. But also building a project properly and commissioning it properly, by doing so, you significantly reduce the operational carbon just by proxy. So there's a genuine reason for why we picked a focus of embodied carbon and not embodied and operational. But we always get asked that. So
we always get asked it, and it's a good question, and people might want to open us up a little bit on to explore why later, but we'll go a little bit in to that. So as Johnathan quite rightly said, yeah, we're around 3,000 members. We cross 62 countries and 35 professions, and we meet irregularly and regularly. We've done in-person workshops, we do online workshops, we have a WhatsApp group, we have a Discord, we have email, we're very busy on LinkedIn, LinkedIn newsletters, all of that we will give you links to later to join. It's a fantastic community to be part of because it really is a place where you can ask questions, and we've had some really good discussions on the WhatsApp today. And people just ask questions, and it's great, and we're there to help each other and there to kind of solve problems. And we're trying, our aim and what we're trying to do is we think that this is the sort of stage that we need construction to get to. We need to have a really good understanding of what the actual carbon footprint is of the work that we do. And it's not just buildings, it's civil as well, and railways, right, John? I mean, this is a big ask for the industry.
It's the actuals and not what came out of the concept model in the initial baseline. And this is a whole other discussion, but the idea of actually being able to get real numbers from construction sites is really complex, and it's, from some recent work I've done, it's very manual. There's a lot of looking at receipts and spreadsheets and what's been bought rather than using like modern processes. Given this is the ZIGURAT Institute of Global Technology, like it's very manual. People are literally looking at piles of receipts and working out what embodied carbon is within a built asset, which I still find, which still baffles me. And given how digitized a lot of projects are now, there should be a better way of doing it. And we would like to print a receipt at the end of a project that tells us how much carbon is in what we've built, but I think we're slightly a few years away from that yet.
We're still a few years away. So we're working with everybody, and it also gives us time. We're also very concentrated on working with future leaders as well. In fact, we have an event in London, London Carbon Week, or London Climate Week, sorry, in June, where we're actually going to be inviting a load of future leaders to come to some offices. We will announce it soon, officially, to work with us and to work with other professionals on how to better bring information into your workplace. So we have an entire section on future leaders. We help them get jobs in construction, and people come and look for new and young people. And we've been pretty successful, right, Jonathan? I think we've found a lot of people.
Interestingly, yeah, people, volunteers, people who are like for example, graduates start working with us and volunteering, and before we know it, they've got a job and they've abandoned us. But that's definitely a success for us. In all honesty, I'm actually quite proud. Someone who was one of our very early Zero Nexters has got that actually announced their dream job at the start of this week. So
yes,
that's a massive win for us.
So fundamentally, at Zero, what we're trying to do is we're trying to be a powerhouse for sustainable change. And what we want to do, really the reason that we want to talk today is about we want to create carbon literacy. Carbon literacy really is the ability to read and write and understand the basics of what carbon is and the decisions you can make as individuals that can affect that in a very, very positive way. And there's kind of those kind of sayings, you don't know what you don't know. And I think that carbon is a huge topic. I mean, Jonathan, we've been working in the digital space for a long time, right? And let's be honest, we're not like the experts of experts in this space, of course.
No. I think what Zero has exposed me and you to, Matthew, is a global perspective of the high-level challenges that the world faces from a construction decarbonisation perspective. And the angle I'm taking of, and something that hugely frustrates me, is the fact that we're still in a position where, and we'll talk about some of the statistics later on, but how much construction contributes from a waste perspective, which ultimately is cash, which ultimately is profit, which to me makes sense to solve irrelevant of whether you're a sustainability advocate and you want to fix the climate. Just not letting your projects go wrong has a huge impact at a very basic level. But the statement on the screen, you don't know what you don't know, I think that is the initial question we asked ourselves as a community. And it sparked a debate around how much embodied carbon is in a cup of coffee. And it is like peeling an onion. When you really start to pull that apart, it is very complex and very deep. And you can go into so many layers of complexity. And I think that's the challenge the construction industry faces, because we are a very complex industry.
The other thing we also say is that you don't know what you don't measure. And I think this is fundamentally one of the big challenges of construction, is that we're actually quite bad at measuring things. And we are, and we have to be really honest about it and say that we're struggling with measuring just cost. I mean, all of us in our daily lives, I'm sure we see reports, projects go over time, projects go over budget, projects have waste. And that's because we're struggling to measure things and count things, and it's only going to get more complicated. And that's because we're going to be asked to count a lot more things and measure a lot more things and really base the cost of a lot more different things. And I've taken this from a fantastic TEDx talk from a gentleman called Michael Green, who's an architect and an author, just to say that I haven't invented this slide, right? And right now in construction, we talk about project cost all the time, right? That's all we really talk about. We talk about how much it's going to cost to build something. And what we're going to talk about today is the cost to the planet. That's the second dimension of cost. But there's other dimensions. There's things like, when do we start looking at things like social cost, the impact of what we do to society and how to better society as a whole. And this is something you're starting to see. I'm starting to see social costs start to be studied a little bit better in places like Denmark, for example. Operational costs. So Jonathan and I just discussed this a second ago, right, about operational carbon. How much is this going to cost us over time? and finally the process cost of just moving everything around, the logistics, getting to and from buildings and all that kind of thing. So all of these things we need to measure in the future. And I can tell you now, we're not ready. We are not prepared.
No. Literally the last couple of weeks, been on projects that are technically cutting edge in this space, and they are not ready for the legislation that is coming into place from a carbon measurement perspective. Like it's coming at the construction industry like a freight train, and I think it's going to hit with, particularly from a legislation perspective, countries that are legislating. I know there's a lot of legislation coming through and plan legislation in London. Specifically, that is going to hit the construction industry like a freight train, and they are not ready for it. And those who have embryonic innovation in this space are going to win and mop up. And I've mentioned this a few times, but think about the Volkswagen emission scandal, where people were basically lying about their emissions for business gain, basically. The construction industry is going to be a position where it could potentially be in the same space, because there is going to be benefits to mismeasuring your carbon, and it's going to be a really interesting few years, I think, for the built environment in this space.
Agreed. So, well, I want to talk a little bit about cost. I want to do a little thought experiment with the audience. And this is something that we did in Zero. And before I kind of go through this, I just want to kind of be a little bit clear here that we used restaurant napkin mathematics here. Okay, this is not scientifically proven, nor is it a scientific paper, but it's directionally correct in that kind of way before somebody shouts at me. And that is what we were thinking about, is we were thinking about a couple of years ago, how many people on Earth is there, and how many billion tons of CO2 to be produced. And we were talking about this because we were talking about which country has like the lowest CO2 per person or that kind of thing. And then we really wondered, well, how does construction work in this space? So if we take these kind of rudimentary figures from the United Nations, then we can say that, on average, people are responsible for about 4.6 tons of CO2 ish, right? Give or take. And that's assuming that everyone is equal, which we know they're not. But for the sake of the experiment, let's say that everybody in the world is equal. Construction produces about 4.5 billion tons. And we have a workforce-ish, according to the United Nations, around 275 million people. Now, of that 275 million people, we think 10% of those people have decision-making ideas. And that's basically anybody and everybody who works in an office, by the way, and a good small chunk of people who work on site. So we get to a number of 27.5 million people. Of that, therefore, 4.5 billion tons into 27.5 goes into 163 tons. So we are individually responsible. Johnathan is responsible. I am responsible in my industry for 163 tons of CO2 per year that I have to think of how I need to get rid of or reduce. And that means that as a decision maker in construction, which I'm sure you are on this call, you have 35 times more impact than the average human being, which is an incredible responsibility, but also an incredible power that you hold. So to give an idea of what that really means, that 35x, that 163 tons, this is what you can do with that tonnage. Going back to Johnathan, the cups of black coffee, right? I'm pretty sure if you drank that many cups of black coffee per year, you probably wouldn't be very well. It's a pretty high amount. Or if you ate that many Big Macs, I kind of feel you may have diabetes. It's a lot of chairs and it's a lot of concrete. To give an idea of how much concrete 400 meters cubed is, it's this much. It's this much concrete. It's around 40-ish, 45-ish trucks of cement. So that's my little thought experiment, and we kind of do a lot of this, right, Johnathan? Like we really don't like doing a lot of PDF work. We do a lot of thinking and talking.
Well, yeah. So something Zero's tried to focus itself on is not being let's produce a white paper on stuff. And I think the idea of giving people the sense that they have agency to have impact, I think that's one of the big challenges we've pushed, and what we've pushed that thought experiment probably at about 15 different conferences on about six different countries now, probably maybe more countries in all honesty. Because I think it's important to understand that if you work in the built environment, you can make a significant impact. To a statistic that I throw around in the projects I'm working on, knock 1% of the embodied carbon out of a typical London commercial project, you can fly to it's the equivalent of 200,000 air miles, I think. So you can have an impact, and I think making it real world as well also makes it easy for people to understand that the decisions they're having are quite significant.
So what we did was over a couple of years ago now.
It was a while ago.
We did this.
The start of this, yeah.
Give us a highlight, Johnathan.
Well, so one of the first things Zero started doing when the WhatsApp started getting bigger and bigger, because it went from 4 people to 200 quite quickly, we started running regular workshops, generically on construction decarbonisation. And what we noticed was, as the chat started to evolve, there was clear verticals of chat appearing. Finance, modern methods of construction, measurement, people, you test my brain now, innovation as an example. So what we decided to do was to, over a period of about a year, run bi-weekly workshops for all these different verticals and turn it into an interactive Wikipedia type playbook. So the key thing about this piece of work, though, it was produced by the industry for the industry. So it wasn't an internal thought leadership type thing where 5 or 6 of us produced it. I think there was something like 300 to 500 individuals contributed text to this, and then it was edited by support from people at Faithful and Gould and Atkins. And we created the biggest Miro in the history of Miro at that point. I mean, there was an insane amount of brain power went into producing this content, and it might not be perfect, and I think it could definitely be improved, but it's built like a Wikipedia page, so you can go in and comment and tell us that it's wrong. But there's 6 key pillars and 60 chapters, and we are trying to produce new ones, but we've taken a slightly different approach over the last couple of years. We have turned the entire thing into an e-learning academy as well. Did an initial launch, had about 150 people through it. I think Matt's now working on version 2 of that at the moment. But it was content for the industry, by the industry, from people who are on the coalface of projects, from people who are digging holes, from project managers, through to the world's most famous sustainability professionals, I think is probably the way to put it. And it's free to access as well.
Yeah. I mean, we've been joined by, to give you kind of an idea of the membership we're talking about, we are also joined by very prestigious organizations. I mean, we're joined by leading universities, we've got leading tech companies in there, we've even got oil and gas companies in there, believe it or not, who are there to try and learn and understand how they can solve some of these problems, as well as some of the biggest kind of leaders and thought leaders as well, part of our community. So it's fantastic. Can't sell it to you enough, of course. But of course, you're here for something very specific, and that is we're here to play a game, and we're here to test your knowledge of carbon. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly switch my screens around, because we're using Slido to do that. So let me just jump up here. I'm just going to change the screen.
We've had some Slido technical issues, and it's meant to be embedded in the deck, but it's decided not to work today for some reason.
So in the bottom there, you've got the little QR code. And what I'll do is I will just copy the joining link and put it in the chat. So you can also join on your computer as well, but I advise joining on your phone, because then you can kind of click the questions. So you can join the quiz, and when you join the quiz, your name will appear. And I don't know what the delay is in our broadcast to you. So there we are. We've got 2 people in.
Come on, guys. We need more than 2.
Already. Remember, there's prizes, guys.
There is a prize.
Prizes. There is a prize. There is a prize. And we'll show you what the prize is later. Got it here somewhere. This is where I should have realized my props.
I've got access to a prize on my shelf behind me, if you haven't got one, Matt.
I've put it. I'm going to blame my wife. She was cleaning earlier. She's moved it. Damn it. I've got pictures of them later. Basically, the prize is a set of playing cards which we produced from the playbook, called our Zero Carbon Construction Top Trumps cards. So the winner gets one of those. We'll give you 20 more seconds to come in. The quiz is going to be in 3 sections. We're going to break between each section just to give you some ideas on how to resolve some of these problems we're going to quiz you about. And yes, we've got, how many people we've got in? We've got 7 people in. How many people are here? All right, a few more. All right, let's get started. So hopefully this will work. First question. You can join, by the way, at any point, by the way, and there's a chance for you to win. You will be scored on getting the question right and how quickly you get the question right. So don't jump in straight away, because if you get a question wrong, you lose a lot of points. So take your time, and you've got around 30 seconds per question to answer. So first question first. What is the term that we use for the total amount of carbon dioxide emission produced over the life cycle of a building? All right.
You can hear the tension.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom, 100%. Oh, everyone's really smart.
It's just a teaser. That's an easy opening, just to make sure people.
It's just easy. All right, next question. Next question. In what order are these industries of the most carbon emitting? So I want you to have the industry at the top is the highest carbon emitting, right? Between aviation, construction, and fashion. Those 3, right? In what order? In what order? And I think this is an interesting one, because I think a lot of people, a few people will probably get this wrong. All right. All right. Let's see where people voted. Oh, okay. People don't. Interesting. Reveal the answer. There we go. It's interesting because we talk about aviation a lot in the media. And I think this is one of those really big things where the media really do disguise how much aviation does. Aviation is around 2 to 2.5% of global emissions. Fashion is around 6 to 7%. And new construction is 12%. We don't talk about construction at all in the media. We talk about fashion a little bit. I saw snippet that Vinted, the second-hand clothing app, is now the biggest fashion vendor in France. Bigger than H&M, bigger than Zara, as of April this year. 18% of all clothing goes through Vinted now in France, which is amazing. That's so cool.
You would never see the media throwing the construction industry under a bus for the errors, unless it's something like a political project, like something like HS2 in the UK. But you're never going to see a media article shunning a construction project that's gone wrong, just generically, because it's just not what people want to read about. But you want to hear, you will see a media article about a pop superstar that has taken a short haul flight on their private jet to go and get coffee or something like that. When in reality, that is pulling the aviation lever has some impact on the amount of carbon we produce, but pulling the construction lever has a much bigger impact in aviation. And I think that is something. And again, it's like oil. It's like the oil industry hiding in plain sight in a lot of ways. And obviously, we need.
So let's dig in. So let's dig in, right? So let's dig in. So we're going to ask. I want to ask you, what is the primary source of carbon emissions in construction? Right? I'm going to ask you the question first, because you can have a little thinking here before the question comes up, right? So what is the primary source of carbon emissions in construction? Where is it coming from? What's our big thing that is coming out of construction. By the way, Jonathan, if you win this quiz, you don't get the prize.
I've uncompeted myself. Just want to make sure Slido was working.
Okay. An easy one, this, I think.
Yeah, should be.
All right, and everyone has guessed concrete, and you're absolutely right. But the next one, just to dig down one more level, what percentage of construction's emissions come from concrete? Now, there's many sources on this, and I'm going to be honest, people don't really agree. People are throwing around a lot of numbers. We've picked one that we think is probably correct, but it could be wrong. But what do we think it is? What do we think is the percentage? According to sources.
Ooh. I wonder how many people have got ChatGPT up.
It's that one. It's 2/3.
Mm.
Right. Now it could be a little bit less, but let's dig up on that.
Two interesting statistics though, Matthew, that we found out during the Zero WhatsApp, that per hour we pour 1.6 million cubic meters of concrete globally. And the second one, I'm actually reading the WhatsApp. Concrete is the second most used resource on the planet behind water, which is kind of scary when you think about it.
And you need water to make concrete.
We're addicted to concrete.
It just goes to show, right? Keep your phones open. We're going to come back to the quiz in a second, but let's dig into concrete a little bit, and just talk about concrete as a material and really what's happening. So we talk a lot about concrete, and concrete has its little challenges. So what we've done is we've done a little kind of SWOT analysis of concrete for you, because there are solutions to solving the concrete problem, but they're not obvious, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So there are proven low carbon alternatives in concrete. There are low carbon aggregates. They exist. They've been proven to significantly cut emissions, and in some countries, depending where you are, they've been certified, right? So they've gone through building regulation certification. The problem is, with the weakness here, is that there's such a heavy dependence on a certain type of cement, which has to be dug out of the ground in a certain way and has a lot of carbon within it. And it's embedded into supply chains. And Jonathan, you've got a really interesting little snippet around this, right? You had a client, I think, in London who wanted to really pick something different.
So they basically didn't write a blank check, but they said they would pay to basically reduce the embodied carbon of their concrete by 50%. The challenge that they faced was it was going to add 18 months to the program, so they had to can it. The procurement and the supply chain just was not ready to produce such large amounts in such a quick process compared to the traditional concrete industry, which makes a lot of sense. But it was such a missed opportunity. But you can understand it was 18 months. That is a long time in a construction project. The current challenge the UK is facing with concrete in general, or its increased usage again, is the Building Safety Act. So what we're seeing is a lot of projects that are proposing very low carbon solutions. Once it gets to usually the stage 3 or 4 stage design, those low carbon solutions are being removed to make the project compliant with the new Building Safety Act and making it fireproof. And obviously safety needs to be up there, but it's a really interesting challenge clients are facing of, we've put this carbon budget in and now we need to remove it because the Building Safety Act is kind of pulling against us a little bit. And now that should change in the future as more products get certified, but that is a current issue most projects are facing.
Absolutely. So there's huge opportunity, right? We know that there's a lot of innovation happening globally, and if you work in materials, or if you know that somebody works in materials, there's huge opportunity here from a business perspective as well. To be really clear here, there's a huge opportunity to make money if you can come up with solutions which produce low carbon concrete. The threat a little bit is that we're currently seeing a little bit slow adoption. The pricing is a little bit out for some things, but it's there. And what we did, if you want to suffer a little bit of more FOMO, we actually had a workshop specifically on this with our community around low carbon cement and concrete. And we came with some really interesting conclusions. We asked the workshop, what are the best actions you could make today to maybe help and implement low carbon? And they came up with ask questions, specify low carbon concrete mixes at the beginning. Even if you know maybe there are challenges with your supply chain, ask for them. And then at least they start to get in there and people start to take notice, and it drives up demand. And it's demand that we need to move the supply chain forward. If you're in structures, optimize your structural design to use less concrete. We've got very intelligent software that can help us do that now. There's also interesting work being done at European regulatory level right now to reduce the amount of concrete in bridges, because bridges are based on a 1970s old calculation, I think, which uses way too much concrete. So they're trying to change that, trying to change the regulatory. It's a bit slow, but they're doing it. And the other thing, of course, use locally sourced aggregates, so you lower the logistics and lower the carbon impact. So if you want to, we'll talk about more about our workshops later, but let's for now go back to the quiz. And we've got the first round of scores, which should be visible on your phones, visible. And no surprise there, our host from ZIGURAT is at the top. So Taysa, if you win, by the way, we will also give second place a set of cards. All right, because I kind of feel there's a little bit of cheating going on, and also you're super smart. But you can see, like, she's taken a little bit more time to answer the questions, 30 seconds longer than second place, and she's got 3 out of 4, not 2 out of 4. So let's jump in. We're going to start talking about waste and circularity now. So let's go to the next question. How much of the world's landfill comes from construction? That's your next question. How much of the world's landfill comes from construction?
And again, there's various sources on this, so you can we have looked at various reports, and there is a slight variation, but there is quite high level stats that kind of join this up. If this is not napkin maths, we are taking other people's deep research into this.
All right, let's see what we've got. All right. Actually, it's not as bad as you think. It's worse than you think. It's 40%. Yeah, it's high. It's a reasonably high number, which is kind of shocking when you really think about it. And that's because, go on, John.
Still blows my mind that 37% of the UK's landfill comes from construction sites. Absolutely still blows my mind. And all I see when I hear that statistic is wasted money. In all honesty, like, I know that's really, really shallow, but it's errors, it's mistakes, it's over-purchased materials. It's ridiculous in a lot of ways. And I think that's one of the statistics that still kind of shocks me when I think about it, in a lot of ways. But that is a global statistic.
It's global average. We're 40 minutes in, so let's keep going. So the next question is, what does circularity in construction primarily aim to reduce? What does circularity in construction primarily aim to reduce? Just what's the point of having circularity in circular economy? What is the point of it? We do a lot of work on circularity. We've got some great people on the circularity space who are working with us. So again, more workshops on circularity coming in. And yes, of course, everybody, well done. That was a nice, easy one. And next, what is the most common material used in circular construction? From a circular construction perspective, what is the material that we always talk about the most? From the circularity standpoint. Because it's also quite easy to use in circularity standpoint. Ish.
I think you might have just give it away there.
Yeah, but they have 1 second left, so it's all right. All right, and then finally, before we move off to our next segue, What construction material is a carbon sink that absorbs CO2 over time? What can act as a carbon sink? So what can absorb carbon? What can take carbon out of the atmosphere? What reduces carbon emissions? Segue. All right. It is, of course, natural-based materials. And we
However,
had...
I think concrete, you could argue concrete as well, because there is additives to concrete now that allow it to act as a carbon sink.
I'll give anybody who said concrete, I'll give you half a point.
Yeah.
For that. But let's talk about natural-based materials a little bit. So again, thinking about different materials, and not here saying that we need to get rid of concrete, right? Because we can't get rid of concrete and we can't get rid of steel, but we need to think about using different materials in buildings much more holistically, and new materials coming in. And there's a lot of natural, recycled, circular materials coming on into the industry now. Like, timber, obviously, hemp, bamboo, all absorbing CO2. But unfortunately, the perception is still a little bit old school. We have a great conversation where we talk about insurance and finance and mortgages a lot. Like, a lot of times to get a mortgage, they want a standard house built out of standard materials, right? So we have these kind of challenges, but there's a huge opportunity. And if you want to learn more about this, Johnathan and I did a great interview with one of our key members as a podcast, which we have. We call the podcast The Three Little Pigs. It's one of our most recent podcasts with the CEO of a nature-based materials company, Johnathan.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting discussion. We learned a lot about agriculture, the history of agriculture and hemp in the UK on that one, which is quite interesting.
So again, we asked her what she thought, and she really said that you should just start asking your suppliers, and as designers, looking at just nature-based options, put them as potential things in the specification. Maybe try and pilot something with a client, pilot something small scale, a case or a prototype. Try and get at least one nature-based material into your next project. Just one. That's all you need. Just find one to get in there, and challenge your specifiers, challenge your contractors, and try and get a little bit inspired on that. So we're going to jump to the last section of the quiz. I'll just bring up the quiz again, and we'll see where we are in the standings. So Tessa is, it looks like, still at the top. The 7 out of 8 questions answered correctly. We've had a bit of a shuffle, I see, in the questions. So Ahmad, well done, you're second. Daniel, you're close, still a chance. Venu, Marcus as well, still a chance. So let's jump to the next question. And the next question is going to be, in 1 year, what is the cost for the global economy in billions of dollars of construction just screwing things up, making mistakes, making errors, making waste? What is the cost in real dollar terms? And this has been studied, right, Johnathan, by somebody?
Yeah, again, this is not this is not our napkin maths. This is again, taking a few different reports from different bodies and institutes and people doing research on this. There's probably various different outputs around this space, but it is a number that's thought about.
So the answer is $600 billion worth of money is wasted by construction. That's a year. That is more than a lot of countries' economies.
Yeah, it's a bit. It's a wild number when you cut it. And again, it's an opportunity from a financial perspective, and every pound or dollar equals a chunk of carbon, ultimately.
So next question, how do we typically measure carbon of a project on site? How do we measure what we've done? How do we measure the materials? How do we measure what we've done on site?
Now, this is probably going to vary, I would expect, across projects and industries, but there is a general trend that we've come across from the projects we've explored.
And I think we've been a bit mean because everybody's said that. And although we like to think that measuring of site materials, like actually ticking it off, to be perfectly honest, it's just some photographs of receipts and some spreadsheets. Even taking photographs of materials, even measuring and counting of materials past just ticking a box does not happen as often as you think it does. And that's a big problem. And the final question in this little section before we move back into the deck. So according to a study from the university, in some cases, how much time is wasted during a week? How much time do we just waste during a week on site by some people on that site? Is it 20%, 4%? So what happened was a PhD student in Finland went to site and watched how people worked for 3 months.
Oh, that's an interesting one to study.
%80 in Finland. Right. So there's one more question after this, and we'll reveal. But I'm just going to quickly just go back to the slide deck and talk about people. And what we're here for and what we're really passionate about is people. And I think people can solve most of what we talk about, all these sorts of concrete and timber and reducing waste. But at the end of the day, it's people. It's people that matter. It's only really people can make those changes.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matthew, but I
ahead.
think you are sharing the wrong
Oh,
page.
I'm sharing
Yeah.
my
I was-
little.
I was just WhatsApping you then, Matt.
Sorry.
There we go. Like, oh, I've got to go back a slide. Look, I had a great picture of people. Thank you. I'm glad it was.
It's a hat. It's not a person.
Just yeah, it's nice, right? So it's people, and I think that we come across a lot of people that are really passionate about this. But I think that one of the challenges we have is that time and budget doesn't allow us to spend time. But there's a surge of free resources you can go and do. You can go and work with ZIGURAT. You can come work with us. You can work with others. There is a lot happening. And again, if you're suffering from FOMO, you can come to us digitally or physically. You can. Well, our community has all these ideas. Yeah, of course, join Zero, join our community, share a resource from ZIGURAT, of course, attend an event by us. Nominate carbon champions internally. Ask your manager if you can have time to learn. If you're a manager, give your team time to learn. Start a team briefing. Maybe start every so often do 10 minutes about carbon at the beginning. So the final question on your phones, so we can move on, just so you can see the scoreboard. You've got one question left. Taysa, Ahmed, it's close, guys. 3 seconds in it. And the final question is really easy. Can you make a change in reducing carbon today? That's the final question. That's your final question. Doing everything that we've said, listening to everything we've said, giving you hopefully some inspiration on that. And of course, you've all said yes, obviously, which of course is the right answer. So let's have a look. Ahmad. Well done. Congratulations. Please contact us. There'll be a little QR code at the end where you can contact us and we can talk. You have very successfully won the prize for today. So congratulations. Well done to everybody. It kind of goes to show that the scores were not super high, and it really does show that carbon is extraordinarily complicated. Like, it's very, 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 very complicated subject. So well done. Everybody.
Game over. Game up. We can't hear the sound, Matt, but there's some really cool sound.
Very loud. All right, Jonathan, let's quickly talk about this. Go ahead.
So Zero's got a lot going on. This is quite an interesting thing we're doing in partnership with the Offsite Alliance, Construction Excellence in the UK, but we're hosting a one-day event in Manchester on Earth Day next year. bit of a conference, bit of an exhibition, but something high energy, looking at disrupting the construction industry from the ground up, basically. Be more information coming out of that in the next few weeks, but we're really looking forward to doing that next year. The court venue is perfect. It's off grid. It focuses on circular. It's a really cool space to do something a little bit different. We shan't go over everything because we're very, very conscious of time, and it'd be good to have some questions and share our QR code for joining Zero if you're interested in hearing more. But firstly, thank you to our supporters as well. We would not exist without Sterling and Bentley. We're not for profit. None of us get paid doing this. So thank you very much to Bentley and Sterling. And this is Matthew's babies. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
And there's a prize winner here.
This is the prize that you've won. You've won a set of these cards. So we've taken the playbook and we've converted it into top trumps that you can play with your colleagues. We will get a fresh set printed. They're print on demand. They take about a month or two to arrive, so we don't waste any energy by just producing stock. So we'll get those over to you. If you're interested in buying some, there'll be a link at the end for your workplace. And as we said, we do produce a pod. We spoke about the one there, the Three Little Pigs. We're about 20 episodes in. You can find us on all your favorite podcast places. You can click the QR code there, but we've got some more QR codes coming up a little bit later. If you have FOMO, we have workshops which you can find on LinkedIn and on our newsletter and on our website, which you can join. We've got some amazing. Some of these subjects have gone. Some of them are coming. We've got them till the end of the year. And as we've kind of mentioned, we're also going to start producing an academy as well.
Version 2 of the academy.
Version 2. That will be launched hopefully in September. So again, sign up. Keep in the loop for that. On how you can have these more sort of fun learnings and the way that we try and teach here a little bit better. If you're interested in helping us, and Jonathan just said a second ago, we are a not-for-profit. We are CAF 30 registered, which means that we can take all your lovely ESG money if you're a larger corporate. And if you're interested, or have people that you think would be interested in supporting our work so we can help build our team and help build more education, then please do get in touch. We are not for profit. Jonathan and I don't take any money from this. We have day jobs, but we would love to be able to pay some young people to help us work and produce more content moving forward. So I hope you've really enjoyed this. If you want to know more, please click and scan the QR code. You'll go to our link tree, which has everything in there. And just a massive thank for everyone to attending. A huge congratulations to Ahmed for winning. Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you so much. Let's keep a little bit more the QR code in the screen. And let's go to the questions, to the Q&A session. I have two questions for you, but in your opinion, what cultural or mindset changes are needed in the construction industry to truly embrace a low carbon future?
Super basic. The change, whether it's a cultural or a mindset change, but the concept of consistent growth needs to change. I think we talked about this prior to the session kicking off, but the idea of bigger, better, more every year, growing the economy. Like there's a really interesting discussion around the GDP metric as a measure of success of a country. Don't think it's the correct metric if we actually want to hit our net zero and social targets. But the idea of constant growth needs to change because it's just misaligns with every other target that we're creating. Like a basic mathematical level, most countries expect 2 to 3% growth a year economically. That basically means every 24 to 25 years, you expect to double what you're doing from an economic output perspective. So how can you hit any kind of reduction targets by doubling what you're doing? The maths just does not math in my head yet, and I can't get my head around that.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think everything is clear. I just want you to leave a message to our audience because we are almost out of time also. So Johnathan, Matthew, if you want to leave a message to our audience, and then we can finish the session.
After you, Johnathan.
Join Zero helps out. Question number one. Secondly, don't underestimate the impact you can have as someone in the built environment. Like if you work on projects, you have the ability to impact change on a daily basis, and do not underestimate that.
Nothing to add there. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, it's as simple as just starting to ask the right questions, get some new stuff in specifications, maybe design something a little bit different. And if you can move every project 1%, 0.5% better every time, then you're doing the right thing. You're not going to be able to solve everything at once. It's too big. It's too big. Just pick something and go and solve that. Something small, something easy, something low hanging.
Perfect. So a huge thank you to Matthew and Johnathan for sharing their time, knowledge, and passion today. And thank you all for being here and contributing to this important conversation. So stay connected with ZIGURAT and don't miss out our upcoming events. Until next time, take care and keep building a better future. Thank you. Thank you so much. See you.